This fall finds Tony winner Leslie Odom Jr. leading the first ever Broadway revival of Ossie Davis's 1961 play, Purlie Victorious, a non-Confederate romp through the cotton patch. Let's take a deep dive into the new production with key players. Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee are heroes to so many people.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but your daughter's named after Ruby Dee.
Yeah.
So you have a personal connection, a real looking up to this couple. Tell me about that.
Thanks to Spike Lee's reverence for their contributions to the arts too. You know, a whole generation of us really got to know Ossie and Ruby through Spike's work. At first, at least, you know, that was our, oh, you know, he always includes them. I wonder why, you know, and over time I discovered more and more about why. Yeah, they're pillars. I mean, you know, the fact that, you know, Dr. King is planning this little march, I think he knew it was going to be more than a little march, but, you know, it was his march. It was his thing that he was, you know, planning, March on Washington, and he calls up his pals. You know, I'm going to need some entertainment. We're going to need a little bit of entertainment in between, you know, interstitially in between the speeches. Would you guys, you know, organize that? Malcolm X passes away. Ossie's phone rings. Can you write the eulogy? I mean, you know, when you think about, that's a tall tale. That's a big life that they both lived. You know, all the lives that they touched and the leaders that depended on them. They're giants, and it's not that any of us deserve Broadway. Mr. Davis deserves Broadway.
Not only did Davis write the play, he starred as charismatic traveling preacher Purlie Victorious Judson, the role Hamilton Tony winner Odom Jr. is taking on. Dee, his wife of 57 years, was right by his side on stage playing Purlie's eager disciple, Ludi Bell.
When I think about America and I think about American artists and I think about American activists, I think about Ruby Dee, Ossie Davis. I stand on their shoulders. You know, they're in the same army with Arabella Fonte and Sidney Poitier and August Wilson and Toni Morrison, all the people I've worked with or met. On stage, the responsibility of an artist is to present the truth. And Ruby and Ossie was about that. So through their work, they created art. He sacrificed a lot to write this play, to write a play about us, all of us. He wrote a play about America and what's gonna keep America beautiful. And it's interesting that 62 years later, we're looking at the challenges of our country, and this is a salve, a balm to heal what's wrong with America.
So let's talk about what it means to you to have Purlie Victorious come back to Broadway.
To see it come back in the ways in which Dad intended, I think means everything.
The play has a very historical significance. It takes a very difficult time in our country, Jim Crow, South, and it turns it on the heel. It pokes fun at it, using farce, satire, humor as a tool against oppression and creating a vehicle, an artistic vehicle of resistance to that oppression.
Dad wanted us and the audience to look at a very serious situation in the world, but be able to still laugh and still be able to be human.
He was obviously an artist, and an actor, an activist, and a writer. What did he see himself at his core? Because I feel like writing was so close to his heart.
A writer.
Yeah, he was a writer, 100%. He did all that other stuff because he did all that other stuff. He did it well, but he was a writer.
So what can you tell me about his writing process?
You tell us to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning as we were growing up. When I was a little girl, it was late at night. But when we were growing up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start his day writing, before any of the rest of us even thought about getting up, we would come and find Dad sitting at the dining table writing, because that was his heart, that was his life. You know, he said, if they ever arrested me, just make sure I have a pencil and a pad and some books.
And he would have his pen, his pinky finger wrapped in tape as he wrote on the yellow legal
Longhand,
pads.
yeah.
Yes. And he often
No
said the
calluses
writing
then.
was done. Yeah, the writing was done. He was ready. Once he was finished writing, the day could begin.
Yep, and he would have one of those cylindrical cans of oatmeal with half of it cut down so that he could stick his pens, papers, pencils, Scotch tape, everything in that. And I would come home 5 o'clock in the morning from carousing or whatever men do at 5 o'clock in the morning. And Dad would say to me, good night. I'd say to him, good morning. And then one day I asked him, Dad, what is it you're writing at 5 o'clock every morning? And it wasn't so much about what he was writing, but he said that talent is a mighty fine thing as a writer. But if you want to be a craftsman, you have to do it whether you feel like it or not.
Yes.
And so we learned about his process and about what it takes to be an artiste.
When it premiered in 1961, the New York Times said while Davis's play, quote, keeps you chuckling and guffawing, it unrelentingly forces you to feel.
The story goes that they said, we want you to write a play about race in America. And he thought about it and he says, that's too painful. The only way I can get through it is to tell it through humor. And he did it, you know. Purlie Victorious, a romp through the cotton patch, you know, and we're still romping through that cotton patch in 2023. All I gotta say is thank you, Ossie Davis. You know, he gave his life. He and his wife, Ruby Dee, gave his life, he gave his art, he gave everything to America, for America. We're gonna keep fighting for freedom. We're gonna keep fighting for laughter.
I feel like what Ossie Davis has written is a dissection in the absurdity of the social and racial structures of this America. Once people see this play, hopefully they open some history books and fight for children to really truly know our history around this country. And globally, too, as global citizens, we need to know the history of American history, which is our history.
It's a romp, it's a comedy, there's a lot to laugh at, but there are uncomfortable conversations underneath this. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Mr. Davis said that he sat down to write a piece about his childhood and he realized it was too painful to ask an audience to sit through. And so really it's an act of generosity. He wanted to honor the truth of that experience and the truth of the people that raised him and the truth about what it meant to grow up in the segregated South. But he didn't want it to be too hard for you to sit through and I to sit through. So he made it a romp. But yes, we do earn a moment or two where we give voice to that pain, we give voice to some of that pain, and the more fun we have, the more satisfying those moments are.